What up, y'all? What up? What up? What up? Hope everybody's doing well. I think I found out or created some fancy ways to go on this live. So super excited about that. And I'm able to figure out how to use Zoom to be on here. So eventually I'll get to share like my screen and things like that. So I'm pretty excited about that. But welcome everybody. I'm still trying to figure out how do I see people's comments as they come in. So that's the next step. Okay, I think I figured out something. So let me see people's comments as they come in. Pause that. So we're good. So perfect. Welcome everybody. Hope everybody's having a great Wednesday. It's not Wednesday. Having a great Tuesday. The days are sort of running together. We actually travel tomorrow instead of Thursday when we usually travel. So just trying to figure that all out. But we are wrapping up our season, and man, what a season it's been. A lot of great things, also a lot of things that we realize we have to go back to the drawing board on. And I think that's the joys of coaching. And that's also the joys of why I like doing these lives because it's giving you the perspective from a college coach now. What does it look like in this moment in time for us as coaches? And then basically, what are we kind of doing in preparation to be ready to face our challenges next year, right? So glad that I get to kind of be in the space and share that with you all. Before I get into that, though, I also want to speak a little bit on Sunday night's call with Mandy. Like, it was the best thing possible. I felt like, everything that she was giving us as information was amazing. It was awesome. It was, I think, very helpful and intuitive to athletes, whether they are in seventh grade or whether they are in juniors and seniors in high school. And I think that there were nuggets to be had in all of those situations. So unfortunately, if you missed this time, we're going to probably try to do another one again next month. So I would say be on the lookout for that. Well, I haven't asked her yet, but hopefully she'll be willing to do another one with me next month. And kind of go from there. But I do want to point out four things she talked about. Well, the four key stages of recruitment that she talked about that I believe is very important. So even if you are didn't get to see the recording, I want to make sure you guys understand the recruiting process from the perspective of a scout, and I think it's very much so from the perspective of a college coach as well. So, what's up, Antonio? I appreciate you for saying that, bro. 100%. So let's see. I didn't get any questions really. So I had a question from last week that I'm going to address that I didn't get to address. I'm going to address a question from the Zoom on Sunday that I didn't get to address. And then I do want to talk about the four stages. So I'm going to start with the four stages and go from there. All right. So what Mandy mentioned in her presentation to us, which was amazing and awesome. But she basically said there was like four stages to recruiting. And the number one stage, which is the most challenging, the most hardest part about this process, which is why we want families to start earlier. What she mentioned, softball being was a early recruiting sport. And so what that means is that that process can begin for athletes, and she said, who are ready for that process as early as yesterday. So whatever that means for you and your athlete, that was a key component that I took away from that call. And I completely agree. And that's why my guide gives you advice from the seventh and eighth grade, what you could be doing all the way up through high school. So if you haven't gotten the guide, make sure you go and find it and get it in the group. But the first step is like being able to be identified. So creating a situation where the coaches know who you are. One of the most hardest parts about this process is that very thing. So being able to be identified is key, right? Once we have the identification together, then the next thing that she said was really important was the evaluation phase. So now that we know who you are as a coaches, then it's now looking at all the things that are important for us as we're recruiting that particular athlete. So, do we need that position? Do we need that grad year? Do we have that major that they're looking for? Do we have financial ability to give them some funds to be able to make it, or are they able to get funds from the school, right? How do they measure up to our current athletes on our current roster? How do we see them fitting into our culture, what their character is? How are their parents going to fit into what we're trying to create? And so this kind of, sorry, as a caveat, also goes into where we currently are as a coaching staff, ending a season as new coaches going into the summer. As we are in this sort of identifying and evaluation phase in life, these are the questions that we are asking ourselves as to what culture are we trying to create? What are we trying to start as a culture? What are we trying to stop as a culture? And what are we trying to continue? So once we have these things in order, understood between us, then we're moving into what athletes are that are on our list fit that. And if we don't have those athletes on our list that fit that, how are we going to identify them? So that's a really important thing that we are currently doing as a coaching staff that is really valuable to you as parents to understand as we keep going. So once we have then that identification phase, we're moving then into, she said, the comparison phase. And so what that means then is, once they're identified, we recognize that athlete might potentially fit our program. You have to understand that we are also finding a few of athletes that fit that sort of persona of what we're looking for. So now it becomes, now the comparison becomes, what does this athlete have that this one doesn't? What's the outlier or the intangible thing that this athlete has that might be better than what this athlete has? So that is a part of this process. And I think I want to stop here because I'm all about the human being at the end of the day. And I think what's really important for me as a coach to tell you as parents that hopefully you can relate to your athletes is I always have the saying that out of 8 billion people in the world, there's only one of you, which makes you unique, valuable, and enough. And so sometimes we're in this comparison phase where we're trying to figure out which athlete best fits the persona that we're trying to create, the culture that we're trying to create. One of those athletes, unfortunately, or a few of those athletes, unfortunately, will not be selected. And I think what's really important is to build up this idea that even though they're not selected, it does not mean that they're not valuable, right? And I think we have to make sure that we're finding ways to build up the idea of value and worth in our athletes. And I think that's the hardest part of this process. And even in like when it comes to competition and them winning and losing, doing good, not doing good, having hits, not having hits, having great stats, not having great stats, is the fact that like a lot of them compare or a lot of them equate their value and worth to the things that they're doing successfully. And I think for me, where the 360 athlete comes in, where it literally says, human first, is if you look at my shirt, it's, human first. And that's because we have to develop the human first. We have to develop, you know, the person, the heart, the mind of who they are. Then we move into the student and then we move into the competitor. So I think that's a really important phase within this process. So I would understand. So what I'm saying about that is when as coaches, we're in the comparison part, if we could choose them all, it would be cool. But even if we did, that wouldn't work out. So I think the biggest thing is how do we help our athletes bounce back and realize, okay, hey, they didn't select me. They maybe found a different, something different in someone else. And how do I find the people that see the thing in me that they saw in another person, right? And so that's where we really want to get to with those athletes. And so I hope that in this whole entire process, you get there. And then step 4, she mentioned, was that's when the offers come and the scholarships come. So again, being identified, okay, being evaluated, comparing you and your athlete to, or sorry, comparing your athlete to another athlete to see which one fits our program the best. And then we then offer, right, and provide scholarships. So beautifully said. And she got into how you do this sort of thing. And so again, if you missed it, we'll get you some more tips on that maybe next time. But all right, so the next thing that I want to touch on real fast is a couple of questions that I got last week that I didn't answer on Sunday. So the first one is a parent asked when sending emails, um, when sending emails, should my athlete continue the same email thread or change it or create a new one? And I think it goes back to a couple times I've said this before, but you have a certain amount of time to catch a coach's attention. Okay. And there was this trick that I had. I'm a speaker as well, and so I'm in a speakers academy. And so when we're cold emailing, people that we want to speak for, or speak their groups we want to speak for, one of the tips that the guy that runs the program said to me was, if you write RE and then like the reply in the subject line, and then the name and the whatever the title is or the subject is of the email, that usually they'll open it because they'll be like, oh, maybe I opened this and didn't realize I opened it, or maybe I responded and don't remember I responded. I'm gonna say that is not gonna work as much in softball. So what I mean by that is I think definitely start the thread. If you get responses in the thread, continue with the thread. But I also go back to when it comes to email etiquette. Um, you shouldn't put everything in one email. So like what we have to do is realize is that we're trying to catch a coach's attention in the first 2 to 5 seconds. And so if there's anything that's showing up that's not catching our attention, for instance, a long thread of emails that are different subjects of different topics, it probably isn't going to land well. However, if you're talking to me about, you know, something in your season and let's say, let me give you an example. Let's say, uh, what could I give you? I'm working on this as a catcher and working on my pop time as a catcher, working on my throws, things like that. Okay, cool. Send me that email, send me some video, right? You can continue that thread if you're talking to me continuously about the throwing and the pop time that you're working on. Makes sense? But if you're gonna use the same thread that you introduce yourself to me and then you say, hey coach, this week we did this in high school in our high school game, like they don't match, right? And also I think it's just not it's not sure that we're going to open that email. So unless we had that conversation going in that email, feel free to keep using it. But I think in general, if you caught our attention and we are responding, I think it's okay if there's a new subject to the email to create a new email. For me, if I am interested in an athlete, what I'll then do is go to my emails and search the email to see how often they are communicating with me. So sometimes with one thread, it gets confused. It may seem like they've only reached out once. Whereas if I see like a bunch of emails come up, 4 or 5, 5 or 6, 5 to 10, whatever it is, then it's like, oh, okay, like they really were interested. They kind of gave me a lot of information over time. And then I can go in there and I can read one of the emails like, okay, that's interesting. I like what they're saying there. What was the next email about? You caught my attention. Now I want to continue to read it. So hopefully that makes some sense to y'all as I say it. So that would be that. One thing that Mandy was talking about in the recruiting call on Sunday was about GPAs and ACTs and taking those early because a lot of athletes are like will probably need to supplement their athletic scholarship with academic money. And so when we're talking about getting merit scholarships, it's really important for the sake of um, just helping us as coaches supplement our income, especially now we're getting ready to have roster caps come into play. And so I'll probably have to do a whole another session on roster caps at some point, but something happened in the a law was passed that basically says we can have a certain number of athletes on our roster where it used to be a little bit more free. So it used to be, I think there were some teams that had like 28, 30, and up to like 35. I've seen one team have like 38 girls on their team, which is crazy. That usually was NAIA, but that it happened. And so at the Division I level, though, they're capping it at 25. And so what that means is with based on our scholarships and our availability of financial ability to give money, we're having to be a little bit more strategic with that number. And also like how can we supplement that with other things on campus so that we're not using all of it, at one time. So we want to be able to use it over time. Maybe we lost a pitcher, so we got a good lump sum from her, but we try to bring in 3 to 4 people. So how do we bring in 3 to 4 people with the financial money that we've gotten from the athletic money that we got from the athlete that's graduating? So the merit scholarships help us in this process, kind of again supplement that income. So the parent asked, if my daughter has a 3.0 GPA, should they no longer consider a D1? Should they kind of just mark that off their list? And I think she said that that athlete was a junior. And so if I can like step back again, this is all about being real, right? As a college coach, um, if your athlete has a 3.0 GPA, it's not even about the academic money that we would be worried about. It would be about the academic rigor and can your athlete um, be sustainable in that space. So the bigger picture would be if they have a 3.0 and they are at home and probably have more access, more time to be better in their academics. When you get to college where there's more free reign, more free time that they have to kind of manage their time, where they have to understand studying time versus going to class time versus taking notes time versus reading time, and really being able to manage those things. That would be more of the question that we would be wanting to answer to determine if Division One will be a good fit. Let me give you an example of this. Regardless of if we travel or not, every week our athletes miss Thursday and Friday classes most times. This week, it's also finals week. Our athletes are missing Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And some of them are having to take their finals at the hotel that we're going to be at on Thursday, right? They've rescheduled their finals. The only time they can take it is 11 o'clock on Thursday. So, what our concern would be is if they have to miss their Friday class week in and week out, do they have the academic discipline to make sure that they get things done outside of class to keep their grades up? So for us, that would be the bigger question, more so than can they play Division One with that GPA. Now, with that GPA, what I would say is hopefully you have the opportunity um to fund their education with a little bit of money that you have left over or whatever. We'll hope we have some money saved up because more than likely they're not going to get academic money. And if they don't get, which I'm imagining most people don't get full ride scholarships for athletics anyway, you're going to have to come out of pocket at least half of what tuition might be and room and board. So the question is, because of their GPA 3.0, can, especially at our school, let's use our school as an example, it's a $46,000 school. Do you have $23,000 per year to go towards their education, knowing that they have a 3.0 GPA? So hopefully that sort of answers the question without answering the question. What I would say is if you have that and you believe your athlete can sustain themselves academically in that space, then have her shoot for the stars. But in reality, I believe she probably needs more academic support, more time, maybe where the team has better balance of travel and them going to class and more support. Even though we have support at our level where we have tutors and study hall hours and all the things, there's still a level of academic discipline that a 3.0 GPA tells us your athlete doesn't have. So that's all I would say about that. And it could be just maybe they started their high school season rough. But that 3.0 tells me it's been a rough 2 years, 1.5 years. So that's kind of again, over time, have we built that sort of discipline up? And maybe we need to take a little bit of time at a lower level and then move up from there. So, yes, so that's what I have. Anybody have any questions they want to throw in the chat? I could probably stay on about 5 more minutes. If not, I think that's what we got today. But any other questions for me this week? Thanks for jumping on, all y'all who are here. I really appreciate y'all every week. It's awesome for me to be able to kind of use this information and share it with y'all, and then kind of share clips of it after as well. So, any questions? Any last thoughts? Okay. All right, all right, all right. All right, y'all. Well, cool. Well, I will, this will be up right now, and then we will go. Oh, let's see. Does HU use the transfer portal heavy? So we are really good question, Antonio. Thanks, Kelly, for joining. Appreciate you. We that's probably a question I should not answer, but I'm gonna answer it anyway. We haven't looked in there yet. And I think right now what we're trying to figure out is um we like our athletes. We like the foundation we've built. The question is, do they like us and the foundation that we built? So I think what we'll find out in the next week or so, 2 weeks, is kind of what's the retention rate of our program, and then we're definitely looking for we've already brought in athletes for the 2025 class, so we're pretty set unless again folks decide that they're not happy in the space, and so then we might have to replace them. That's probably the time we would go into the transfer portal to look. I think our school is pretty unique, and being a STEM school, there are a lot of academic requirements and credits that have to be at a certain caliber to transfer into our school because we are pretty heavy STEM. So those science, technology, math, engineering major classes are pretty big ones. So for us, it's a big one for us. Yeah. Yes, we 100% believe in recruiting high school students. Absolutely. Yep. Good question. Not necessarily seniors, because uh, hopefully we recruited them or they're on our radar in their sophomore and junior year. So to clarify that, Antonio, we do like to recruit high school students, not necessarily high school seniors, if that makes sense. So awesome. Well, cool. Well, thank y'all again for tuning in. Excited to see y'all again next week, and we'll go from there. Have a nice day, y'all. Peace.